Okay, welcome. I posted another new poll, so if you can see it there in your on your display, if you could answer it, that'd be great. Like I said, my name is J.R. Bellario. I'm a teacher here in Los Angeles, and I guess my story with what I'm teaching today is, I have some experience with video and with editing and filming. I took classes at AFI here in Los Angeles, and I got some fellowships to teach photography and video with my students. And so that's just something that I've kind of worked on, and I had in my back pocket. I also worked on some projects for some bands I play in and with my church. So it wasn't anything that I had been doing recently, but when pandemic hit, my brain started kind of moving, like, how am I going to reach my students? And I'm a traveling music teacher, so I have 4 schools over the whole school year. How can I reach that many students? Um, and honestly, the Zoom meetings I had with a lot of my teachers weren't happening because their Zoom time was very precious. They only had about 90 minutes to 2 hours of instruction, and you know as much as they liked me, they really couldn't afford to give up some of that instructional time with their students. So I thought, well, how can I still serve them? And I thought, well, hey, I could do some videos. I could create some videos and share them. And it turned out to be a really good thing because it gave the teachers the freedom to kind of present my lessons when they wanted to, and basically so I could fit their schedule better. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at, and I just was making. I've been making more lessons and just trying to not just make a video, but also to use the medium in a way that will really help me teach what I'm trying to teach, my concept. Okay. I told, some of the videos, I put a lot of time into them, but I also figured, a lot of these videos I'm going to be using when we go back into the classroom eventually. So, I don't want you to think that this is just for YouTube, this is just for online. This video is something that you could use in your physical classrooms as well. Okay. Now, let's just get started. Okay. Let me get my slides up here. All right. So my presentation is called Guerilla Video. And, when I say Guerilla Video, kind of based on the Rage song, but, things like YouTube and Vimeo, they've been kind of the big equalizer. Before when we were growing up, only the elite had access to this technology and access to broadcast. But you see now anyone can get what they film to the masses, okay? And that's very empowering. And you don't need to have a lot of money, okay? I'm still using a 10-year-old MacBook. My iPhone is about 5, 6 years old, and I'm still able to create these things. And you can too, okay? And you don't need a lot or any type of money. You just need a little bit of elbow grease and a willingness to learn something new, okay? So our overview for today, and this is going to be very general. I'm going to be talking about pre-production, and that is preparing your lessons, script writing, storyboards. This is probably one of the most important things to do to be able to create an effective video, and really to create it on an ongoing basis. To do this once in a while is one thing, but if you want to do this on a weekly basis, it's really good to kind of get some routines down. Next, we're going to talk about production, and when I say production is producing your content, filming, what kind of equipment you should use, creating other type of media, not just video, but if you create graphics, maybe music and audio, okay? And we're also going to talk about post-production. And then this is probably what I've gotten the most questions about, is how to edit this stuff together. Now, when I was younger in high school, I actually had the opportunity to learn how to do this the old-fashioned way with VHS and with actual tape. But the software that's out today, it's so user-friendly. And most of you have something like this on your computer or your device already. So I hope it's something that you can take advantage of, okay? All right, so let's get started. So for pre-production, let me take a look at my poll real quick. All right, what are you most interested in learning today? I'll give you about 30 more seconds to answer it. Preparing a video, filming a video, editing a video, or all of the above. All right. Looks like a lot of you want to learn everything. So, um, here's what I guess we're going to do. As a lot of you might know me from our other Modern Band Summits, I have a lot to say, and I've prepared a lot of really cool stuff for you. I don't think I'm going to cover everything in an hour, but I'm going to cover as much as I can. And as you know, this PowerPoint will be available online. I'm also creating some how-to videos on my YouTube channel. Some are already there, which I'll share with you later. Um, some I was going to show you today, but we're going to see how time goes, okay? So anyway, let's get started. Pre-production, preparing. First thing you should be doing is do some research on your topic. And I'm not just talking about if you're trying to teach scales or about instrument or music history, but also do some research on video, how you want your video to look, okay? Figure out what do you know and not know about your topic, okay? Who's your audience? You know, are you teaching elementary? Are you teaching middle school, high school, college? Check out your music and art standards, okay? And a lot of the times, you know, creating a video can be so overwhelming, but looking at those kind of things kind of helps narrow down the field and gives you a good focus. Find examples for your lessons. And then, you know, of course, fact check. Make sure you're sharing make sure you're sharing things that are true and are agreed upon. Okay, and that's pretty easily nowadays when you can research things. Also, check your vocabulary and lingo. Now, you might talk about a music concept one way, and someone might talk about it in another. Okay, someone might say violin, someone might say fiddle. And you know what I'm talking about. So maybe cover your bases, and you might learn something new in the process. Okay, and then last, look for inspiration. And you can see that's Rick Beato over there. I know a lot of you follow him. He has a YouTube channel. Anyway, you can check him out on your own. And when I say that, if you don't normally go on YouTube, and I say YouTube and Vimeo because they're free and it's online, what do you want your video to look like? Okay, what kind of aesthetic are you looking for? What can you visually show on video? And maybe what can you do on video that you probably couldn't show in your classroom? Okay, so those are things that you could be looking for. Okay, all right. So what's a good length for your video? Okay, now that's a big question. Okay, now I have some ideas about it, but I think there's two ways you could think of it. You could be thinking of a short form video, like a video segment, and this would be a video that's part of a larger lesson. That's usually what I do. I have a short video, and then I like to interact with my students on Zoom or whatnot. Or are you going to have a long form lesson, a long form video? Are you covering the whole lesson? Okay, and you probably see a lot of that on YouTube. Okay. Now, with that in mind, there's this 10-2 rule. You know, we teachers know this. For every 10 minutes of instruction, you should be giving your students 2 minutes to process. For younger students, maybe it's a 5-to-1 rule. Keep that in mind when you're making a video, okay? Remember, these videos can be paused and rewatched. And I prefer that I would create an effective 5-minute video that my kids could watch 2-3 times, then create an epic 15-20 minute video that they might watch once. And you know, rewatching it is probably going to help reinforce what you're trying to teach. So keep that in mind too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with longer videos, but remember that 10-2 rule. For about every 10 minutes, you should have some sort of interaction. You're not just lecturing the students the whole time. You know, they're participating, okay? Just like you do in the classroom. A lot of these ideas, just think of what we do in the classroom, okay? This is not anything, these ideas are probably not new to you, but just remember, it works the same way, okay? Also, you can check your script, and we'll talk about what a script is, you know. Check your lesson plan, okay? I usually like to focus, if you've seen my videos, I usually like to focus on 1 or 2 ideas or concepts, okay? It makes it a lot more effective, and you know, the kids can rewatch. And my general video lesson outline, I have an introduction, I define the main idea and vocabulary, I give some examples, and then there's usually a student application. No surprise, this is what we do in the classroom. Okay, all right, so using a script. Now, that might seem like, oh, Hollywood, but really a script is like your lesson plan. And specifically, a script is what you're gonna say on video, okay? For me, I love to write, And for me, the script is important because it helps shape my ideas into one message, of one clear message. Okay, you don't want to be going on so many tangents, but that's what a script can do for you. It helps you stay focused. Okay, a script can help you develop and maintain consistency within your videos. Okay, your aesthetic. Mr. Rogers' neighborhood looked the same every week, right? Your character, if you're going to develop, and when I say character, I'm not necessarily you have to act different, but how you are in the classroom, your lingo, how you talk to your students. Your kids know who you are. They know how you act. They know what makes you laugh. They know what makes you upset. That's the kind of character you probably want to develop on your videos. Okay. And just a rule of thumb that I learned, every 125 words of dialogue uh, is probably about a minute of video. Okay, so that's a good way to gauge how long your video is going to be. When you're writing your script, check how many words you are. Okay, is it going in? Is your video going to be about 5-10 minutes long? But just by checking what you're going to be saying, that script is very useful. Okay. All right. And then of course, this makes your time efficient. Having a script gives you a game plan. So along with scripts, something called storyboards, and I'm sure a lot of you know what these are. A storyboard, it's a visual way for people to plan a video, a film, and we can use that for these lessons as well. Okay, there's a lot of different templates that you can find, and this is a good way for you to plan your visuals and to plan your audio. And that's very important for us as music teachers, right? Because we just don't want to have them hear. We also want them to see, and we want them to kind of see what we're trying to demonstrate to them, okay? And having templates like this is very helpful. So guess what? I have my lovely wife created some of these templates for you, okay? So let me show you some things that you plan on your templates and storyboards, video, photos, what kind of graphics you want to put on there, if you want to put some sort of animation, if you're going to do a voiceover, if you're going to be in front of the screen, if you're going to put some music. Okay, and they're pretty simple, but some of these templates can be very, very, very helpful. Okay, you can plan them by scene. You can actually just draw what you want to be seen on the video. You can show what kind of angle you want. You can start to use your imagination. And what I love about this is, we are musicians, we are music teachers. Creativity is a part of our job, and this is another way to be creative. Okay, so I have 5 templates here that you can use. Some of them you can write down. You can just write down your ideas. Some of you can draw out what you want on the screen, what you want to hear. So under files, I have some PDFs for you, and I'm posting them right now. Okay, so you can download those. I'm not expecting you to use all of them, but you can probably find a template there that can be useful to you. And feel free, you can tweak it, use it the way that is best for you. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to take a real quick look at the chat. Some people are asking about the presentations. I believe, yes, these will be available online. And if you know me already, I can probably send it to you. But I believe all of our presentations will be online. Let's see. Okay. All right. I'm going to move on. Okay. So I hope you see that under files. I think I could make it an offer too. Here, I'm going to put it as an offer. Same thing. Let's see if you can see it. Oops. All right. So you should see it there. All right, let's move on. Okay, so let's get to equipment. Okay, first thing, a video camera. Now you don't need anything fancy at all. Your iPhone works great. Smartphones, tablets, awesome. They're accessible, and nowadays these devices have great resolution. They can take really good video on them. Okay, now computer cameras can work well too, but just watch out if your camera. Excuse me. Watch out if you use your computer camera, because if your computer is like my computer has a fan and it starts to make sound. It's making sound right now. and you'll get that into your video if you're using it. So just watch out for that. Let's see, I think you can just go through that. I prefer to go through landscape orientation, and that's not because I'm some sort of like landscape snob, but you'll see later as you edit videos, you start to limit yourself if you hold the phone portrait side, you know, straight up like this. Okay, so holding it landscape will give you more options when you edit. All right, and then, you know, as most of you know, I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to just try to move on. I think a lot of you know this already. Just watch your resolution. The biggest part of the resolution on these digital cameras is light. Okay, it's not like a traditional camera where it can you can adjust the aperture. A lot of these digital cameras need light to make good photos. Okay, some things I suggest is using a viewfinder grid, and most phones, iPhones, have this. You can find this under your settings, and we'll talk about why that's important a little bit. Okay, all right. Next, another a piece of good equipment is a tripod, or as my kids say, the biggest selfie stick in the world. You can get a pretty good, you can easily get some attachments for your phones to attach them to a tripod. I use my mic stands, and if you have ones with clips, they work really well. There's a picture of my phone here on a clip, and I love using this because my microphone stand can go really high when I'm trying to get overhead shots of playing the drums or piano. So that's a really cool option, and that's probably something that you have already. You could also use a music stand. You can be creative. Just be careful because, you know, those are expensive. Those phones are expensive. All right, so getting to lighting. This is probably going to be the biggest tip if you haven't really paid attention to make your videos look really good, is to have lighting, okay? And there's lighting all over the place. This is kind of a good example. You can see how there's a lot more shadows on the picture on the left. And like I said, with digital photos, it really makes a difference, okay? Pay attention to the direction of your light. So here's some examples. I'm standing in front of my window, facing away, and then on the picture on the right, I'm facing toward the window. Okay, so you can see how much more light is shown on me and how much clearer the picture is. Okay, also check the lighting that you have in your house. Okay, so I had some pictures here. The third picture on the left is no light in the room. The middle is one light, and the third picture here is all the light in this room. So it makes a difference. It really depends on, I guess, how you want to show, but direction of the light does make a difference. Okay, and this is just the existing light in your house. You can also buy light. You can buy lamps at Home Depot. Let me just move on. I think you can read all of this later. But you don't have to spend a lot. One really cool idea is using a shower curtain to diffuse the light so that you have a softer light on yourself. Okay, so there's actually a lot of YouTube videos that show how you can do that, and that's really inexpensive to get a really nice light for your video. Okay, all right, so film set, let's move on. I like to pick a consistent area, and I think most of you can kind of understand that, especially after being in quarantine. You want something that's simple with less distractions, kind of like where I'm at. I don't have a lot of things on the wall necessarily. And if I were to put something on the wall, I'm sure I would put something that would be helping my lesson. Okay. Of course, check lighting. This room in my house is really nice because the walls are all white, so it is a lot brighter. And what's nice is in this room, the lighting is really nice. So if I need to film at night, I can still get the consistent look in my videos. So that's something that you got to look out for too, because if you have good lighting that you use from your window, you might not be able to get that same lighting if you're trying to film later in the afternoon. Okay. Your background, and when I say background, I like to keep mine simple. Like I said, I have a lot of white walls in my house. You could use some fabric here. Okay, something simple. And I know a lot of my friends, my teacher friends, like using fabric because they can just cover up stuff so their kids don't see it on their Zoom lessons. Pretty simple idea. Okay. And you could experiment with different backgrounds for different contexts throughout your lessons. Okay. All right. Microphones. Um, the microphones on your phones, especially if you have an iPhone, they work pretty well. Okay. Now, again, like when I said about using a computer microphone, watch out if you have a fan, because it will make a sound. Now, what I'm using, some of you notice I'm using my Rode condenser mic. Um, this is something that you might have as music teachers, so it's something that you can use. Consider distance. If you're using the audio from your phones, you can see in this picture, I was using two camera phones, and you'll probably get a different type of volume from one camera than the other, especially if you're playing an instrument, right? When I'm playing my drums, sometimes the camera that I'm using for a weird angle, like on my bass drum foot, will give me a better sound than the sound from one of the general cameras that I use. So also, you can use your cameras also for voiceovers and sound recording, and we'll try to talk more about that in a little bit. Oh, almost forgot. Sound isolation. You probably can tell that it'll make a big difference if you have a lot of noise happening. So finding a good quiet place or isolated place makes a difference. And watch out, monitor your filming, because you might not notice some of these noises until afterwards. You might hear some doors moving. So kind of pay attention to that. Now, if you want to go to the next level, and or if you want your sound to be a little bit better than that, you can use microphones. Now, there's two options that will probably be good for a lot of you, and that's either a USB mic, and that's a mic that can just plug straight into your computer with a USB cable. I prefer the option on the right, which is a USB interface, and I like that because I record music and I use my interface, and with my interface I can plug my traditional microphones into that interface. That's what I'm using right now. I'm using a M Audio M Track, and I'm plugging one of my condensers into it. And these are actually really nice to use during Zoom calls. It makes you sound a lot better. And if you do any of our, if you participate in any of our, what's the word, our online performances on Zoom, what am I trying to say here? Coffee house, playing songs. These mics work really well. So you don't have to just buy this just for making a video. They have a lot of other uses as well. Okay. If you don't know what a dynamic and condenser microphone is, condenser microphone kind of spreads out and picks up the sound. A dynamic microphone is more direct, like a SM57. Okay. I have a condenser right here, and I use this for overheads, and you probably have some of these microphones already if you're a music teacher. So that's why interface might be a good option for you. All right, filming. Let's move on. Framing your shot. Now, you know what? Like me, you are probably experts on TV and movies. We've watched them all. Okay, so you know a lot of these already. Okay. Now, getting back to this grid, I like to have my grid on my phone because you can use it to align your subjects, and you can also use it to apply the rule of thirds. If you are familiar with photography, the rule of thirds is just basically this idea that you place your subjects off center, and it kind of draws the eye, and it gives a much more artistic look. Okay, so that's something that you could play around with. I had a video I was going to show you. You can Google, you can look on YouTube. They showed a rule of thirds grid on the Lord of the Rings, and all the shots were right on center, and you can see how dynamic and dramatic some of these shots are. Okay, so if you haven't already, you can just start thinking about it. Turn on the grid on your viewfinder and just start, when you take photos around the house, start playing around with that. Okay, but this grid is also good for centering things, like here on the right. All right. 3 common shot sizes. You probably know we have our close-up, which is your head. It's technically supposed to be just your head, but for me, I also say to my head to my shoulders. So the 2 photos here on the left are kind of my close-up shots. We have our medium shot, which is our head to our waist, and then you have your long shot, which shows your entire body. Okay. Now there's a lot of other types of shots if you want to get technical and get more artistic about it. But these are 3 common shots that you would probably use during your lesson. Okay. And for me, having that in mind really helps me narrow down my focus when I'm filming these things. I'm not trying to just put the camera in some random place. I specifically start thinking where I want to put it. And you can actually probably have something set up in your house. Okay, I have a video I want to show you. And so I have some ideas for some filming lessons. And if you've seen any of my music lessons, you've probably seen these three ideas, okay? These three filming situations, okay? I have it here on I have it here on the slides, but I'm going to show you the video instead. Okay, here it is. Here are some filming ideas for your video lessons. There are a lot of scenarios you can film, but here are some ways you can get started. You can film a single speaker. This could be the teacher or someone performing a monologue. And in this case, you would be using one camera at one angle, or you could also use two cameras at different angles simultaneously. We can create melodies from rhythm and something that we call pitch. Pitch is the lowness and highness of a sound. These sounds, or tones, can be high or they can be low. Another idea is two or more speakers. This could be an interview, a dialogue, or even a sketch. In this case, you could use one camera at different angles, but perform multiple takes and edit them together. You could also use two or more cameras at different angles simultaneously. Hello, my name is Jay, and today I'm interviewing Pikachu. Hello, Pikachu. So, what I want to know is, how do you incorporate Phrygian modes into your modern music composition? Fascinating. A third idea for a video lesson is a demonstration, showing how to do something. In this situation, you could use one camera at different angles and perform multiple takes, editing that takes together. Or you can use two or more cameras at different angles simultaneously. One camera on the speaker, another camera modeling, in our case, playing an instrument. You could even have a camera overhead. Let's get started. First of all, we need to learn the letter names of all the keys. The keyboard has a lot of white keys and black keys. But if you look carefully, there's a pattern. Do you see it? There's groups of 2 black keys and groups of 3 black keys. Now, if you're ready, let's try it at a faster tempo, 90 beats per minute. 1, 2, ready, go. Thanks, Carlos. You guys missed the most important part of my presentation. All right, so here I am. That's just some ideas. And you can see there's a lot of creative ways to get some better angles. And really, it's a good way to make your, to make your point better in your video, okay? All right, can you hear me now? Can someone... Mime section. All right. Can you hear me? I thought I unmuted myself. No. Can anyone hear me now? All right. We're good. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thanks. So, like I said, it's just being creative, and really, if you have an iPad, that's your second camera. Okay. Like I said, let me go to some of the questions. How do I do this? Someone asked about using a DSLR. Yeah, that'd be great, and you know that will get you a lot of really nice shots. However, those take up a lot of space if you're gonna be using them for video. So just watch out for that. You might want to lower the resolution. Um, I'm not really an expert on the new digital SLRs, but I've seen so many of the YouTubers. They use those, and they create some really good quality video. All right, let me see more questions. Um, do you have to Google for the Lord of the Ring thing? Yeah, if you Google it, it should be on YouTube. I can post a link later. What about mics for phones or tablets? Yeah, yeah, Chris, there's a lot of good mics. I know Shure makes some good mics for iPhones that can connect straight to it. But sometimes just for the purpose of these videos, I just use my straight phone and I just use the microphone from there. Now, it as a condenser, it might not work as well, but if you watched all my videos, that's the straight audio from my phone. But yeah, you can get mics from there. But I think the only one that I saw that was reasonable were the Shure mics for the iPhones. Brands. So for microphones, you know, you can go with any kind of mic. I like this mic. Rode is an Australian company. They make some really good microphones that I've had this for about 15 years and it just lasts. And like I said, I'll use this for performances for my students. So it has a lot of purposes. M Audio had this, let me see if I can show you. This is this digital interface. Ooh, can you see it? They discontinued it, but this works pretty well. We've had this for a while. I also use equipment by a company called Motu, Mark of the Unicorn. It's a little bit more expensive, but like I said, I use that for recording music as well. Okay, let me move on here. Okay, back to my presentation. All right, so and if you want to, like I said, that video is on my YouTube channel, and I also kind of put the summary of ways you can use your different cameras for these different type of filming situations. Okay, all right. So working with multiple cameras. Now, if you notice in some of my videos, especially like the drum and keyboard, I was using 2-3 cameras to get different angles. Now, some things to watch out for. Watch out for your line of sight. Okay, you don't want the other cameras to be in the view of the other cameras. Okay. Also, like I said earlier, watch out for how the audio is affected by the different microphones. Sometimes I might just use the audio from one of the cameras. Sometimes I mix it together. Okay. And then also, this is probably the big point, is creating a sync point, okay? Now, this is not a new idea. This has been around for hundreds of years. So you see these clapper boards in Hollywood. That's what, these have a purpose, okay? So usually what happens when people are filming with more than one camera, you'll hear them go 3, 2, 1, action, and then they'll hit the clapper board. And that clapper board creates a very distinct clap sound, right? That is what they use later on to sync the cameras, to sync the videos. Okay, and if you've done any of these multi-performance videos, that's the easiest way to do it. Now you can try to do it visually, but if you want it to be really perfect, get a really nice clear sound, a snap or a clap. Okay, I also when I do these kind of things with students or with friends, I tell them not to talk, not to talk with a clap, because you really want that snap, that sync point to be distinct. And I'll show you why, because when you line up the audio wave files later, you'll be able to see it visually and you just line them up. You don't have to do a lot of work, okay? All right, so filming, get yourself into a flow. That's what I do, okay? I have a little setup here, and this is the space right behind me. I keep my computer right next to me and I put it on a music stand. My friend Catherine Deering, she uses this teleprompter software, which I'll share the link with you later. There's these websites where you can put in text and it will work as a teleprompter, and your words will come down so you could read it. You don't have to turn the page. Okay. Usually, what I do is I keep the camera going, and if I have my script, I just go through the script. If I make a mistake, I just repeat and do another take. And you'll see this is a much easier way to edit down your videos. it's easier to cut out a bad take later on in iMovie or Final Cut than it is to stop and start the video over and over. And plus, like, as you know, as musicians, you start to lose a rhythm. Okay. So I just keep the camera going, and sometimes I'll have like a 20-minute clip of me just reading through my script. Okay. And I'll read it. Even though I know I'm going to show an example, I'll just keep it going. Okay. Because I know I could edit it later. Just remember that. Okay. I anticipate editing. You might have to film segments of your lesson out of order, especially if you have a set, right? If you're trying to talk about something if I'm going to talk about something at my drum set in the beginning of the lesson and at the end of the lesson, I'll probably film those two sections together. Okay. Remember, you can cut out mistakes. You can take out the bad takes. And if you can remember, try to verbally label your takes in your video, because when you're going through like a 10-minute video of all these takes, it helps if you're saying to yourself, that was a bad take, take that out, next take. Okay. And you'll see in software like iMovie and Final Cut, you can use the audio waves as cues. Okay. I also record my voiceovers. Now, if you see my videos or any video, a voiceover is where they're showing something, but someone's talking over it. Okay. I do that with my phone during the script reading. Okay. And I like to do that because it keeps the audio consistent, whether I'm directly in the camera or if I'm doing a voiceover, the quality of the sound is the same, and it's easier. I just have it on the video take, and I just can edit it out. Because you'll learn in our video editing software, you can take out the audio. Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, and of course, monitor yourself and experiment. I'm really hoping I can get to some of my files so I can show you. Like, I'll have 3-4 takes of saying something, and sometimes I'll listen, and the way I thought I wrote it in the script doesn't really sound the way I thought it would on camera. And you can edit that. So if you say like, wow, if your line is something like, all right, boys and girls, let's play. And you notice, you know what, I need to change the expression. Try a few different takes, okay? It's easier just to do that take now. It's easier to do the different takes now. And then later, you can just cut out and filter out the ones that you want to keep. You know what I mean? You don't have to go back and reshoot. So some things to keep in mind. And for me, that really keeps the workflow going and makes your time more efficient. Okay. All right. I have a video by my good friend, Aaron Stanley. He also does videos here in LA, but he loves using green screen. And that's something I'm going to try to do more. But he and some of my other friends here in LA, we were talking about this with some of our colleagues, and I wanted to share some of their great ideas, like Catherine's teleprompter idea. This is Aaron's green screen video. I'm going to share it with you. His video is actually about 10 minutes, but I edited it down to about 3. If you want to watch the whole video, I'm sure he or I can share it with you later. Okay. So here is Aaron Stanley.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Mr. Stanley, and you've just joined Mr. Stanley's music class.
Okay, time to get up. Andiamo. Hey, let's get together. Walk in a circle and just follow along. Shake a tambourine. Or shake your hands. Or shake whatever you got. Tutica.
A green screen background allows you to separate your personal life from your professional life. It eliminates the work and stress of worrying about whether your space is cleaned up and or appropriate for whoever is watching you. Creating an artificial background eliminates the view of your personal space. And really, the only thing you need to get started messing around with green screen is a green background. I've tried and have witnessed others using everything from butcher paper, sheets, paint from Home Depot, and a variety of different types of professionally made green screens from Amazon.
Pitches can be high, pitches can be low, but when we
sing a major scale we call the first note do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. High pitch, low pitch, and pitches in between.
How to do it.
After filming something in front of a green screen and then downloading it to iMovie, all you have to do is click and drag it over top of the image that you want it to appear over. Then I looked up to the icon where you see like a square over a square. I clicked on that, and the one I want to use is green screen. So I click on green screen, and it's like magic. It immediately superimposes the green screen image over the background. Now, another way you can use green screen or try out green screen without having a green screen is by going on YouTube and looking for images on green screen. So in this case, I found a baseball and I wanted to make it look like it was flying across the screen. So I used a Ken Burns effect and I put, start before the baseball and then end afterwards, and it looks like it's flying. I clicked and dragged the baseball on green screen and put it over top of the image that I wanted it to look like it was flying over. And like magic, I clicked a little button that has the two squares. I selected green screen, and look at that.
High pitch, low pitch, and pitches in between. You can pitch a baseball, but that's not what I mean.
Mic back on. All right. So let's see here. Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool ideas, and I always thought that you'd have to have a physical green screen, but Aaron showed me you can actually use images with the green, and that's a really powerful tool in iMovie. Okay, so something that you can check out. All right, let me get back. Now I have about 50 minutes left, and I'm about maybe 1/3 through my presentation. So you know me, I have a lot more up that to say. So screen recording, you can Google that, but there are just some things you can do if you want to actually record your screen. I did that for some of my videos to show you demonstrations on iMovie. Creating visuals. Creating visuals are good ways to kind of bring some crispness to your video, especially if you're explaining something. And even as teachers, music teachers, you might be explaining a scale, and how better would it be if you had the scale as a visual? Okay, now you don't need to have an expensive program to create graphics. There's a lot of ways to do it. So I'm going to talk about some of the software that I use that is either free or very cheap. Photo formats, we can talk about that later. And there's also a lot of royalty-free images and video online. A lot of the stock photos I use in this slideshow are from these. All of them are from these royalty-free websites. Besides the photos that I took myself. Okay, creating your own graphics. Okay, you can use a graphic design program, but some of the easiest ways to do it is to use Google Slides or PowerPoint. I have a video on how to do it. I will just, it's on my website. I'll share it with you later, but it's really easy. I use it. I know my friend Catherine uses it a lot in her lessons, but it's a great way to bring something engaging into your video and gives a break from the kids looking at us the whole time, okay? Some graphic design programs. So you can use PowerPoint and Google Slides, and also you can even utilize the Little Kids Rock resource PowerPoint presentations, because they have a lot of the graphics for tablature and whatnot that you can manipulate and create visuals for your class. I know a lot of you use that. So some graphic design programs you can use. There's so many, but some that I thought that were worthwhile and not too expensive. There's PixArt. My daughter uses this. It's free, but they also have a higher tier program. If you pay more, you can have more features. I use this program called Swift Publisher on Mac, and there's Gravit Design that's available on all platforms. There's a free version, and then if you want the more bells and whistles, there's a $50 version. So there's a lot of these available, and they're not just on Mac, they're on a lot of platforms. Okay. All right. So here's how some of the programs look like. If you want to make I made this one here on the left. That was some stock footage and some text, and I felt that was, a lot more eye-catching. All right, creating a simple animation. I have a video on this too, but I'm just going to show you how it works. If you remember those flip books back when we were little, that's all I'm doing. If you've seen my videos, I'm just making a really simple flip book. Okay, so one of my videos, I had I wanted to show the drum beating to the music, and so basically all I did is I created one graphic, and they were very similar, but there's one change. I wanted the drum to be moving. So the first frame looked like this, oops, and the second frame looked like that. Okay, and if I go back and forth, I don't know if it's sliding, but basically it's a flip book where it looks like the drum is moving. Okay. And you can create that just by using these graphics. Another way to create some engaging content on your videos and give the kids something else and different to look at. Also for here, I'm making a cartoon, and it's a great way to visualize some of the ideas I'm trying to teach. Okay, so think like a flip book, and it's really easy to just alternate those photos, and it looks like the drum's moving. Okay, all right, let's move on here. Organization. I have a lot of files, and so staying organized is a good idea, especially if you're making a series of videos for your students. And sometimes it's helpful for me if I keep it organized. If I need to refer to something from a previous lesson, I could find it. We're teachers, you get it. One thing that I also do is when I save files, videos, or I put some relevant words in the file name. And I do that so that way when I search for it on my computer, it's easier to find. Because even though I put them in folders, I still can't find certain files. But if I put a date or I put a descriptor word, when I search for it, it's easier for me to find that file that I want to use. Okay, so just an idea. Okay, so someone asked video editing software. Okay, and there's a lot out there. Okay, iMovie is available on your Mac. Like I said, I'm using like a 10-old version of my iMovie. It's free if you have a Mac. There's Movavi, which is another great program. There's different tiers of this program, 40, 60, 80. This is available on Mac and Windows. My friend Brent he loves using Camtasia. That's available on Mac and Windows. It's available for I think it's a $50 fee a year or $250 for a lifetime. So you buy it, and they have educator pricing. There's also Filmora, which is available on Mac and Windows. And then there's Final Cut. Now, Final Cut is the more professional version of iMovie. It's a little bit more expensive. It was $200 or $300, but as an educator, Apple has a bundle. So if you don't know about that, it's great. For $200, you get Final Cut, you get Logic, you get Main Stage, you get their five Pro apps. So something to check out too. I do warn, if you haven't done this before, I would maybe wait a little bit and get used to some of these other programs before you do Final Cut, because it could be pretty overwhelming to use, a lot of options. But all of these programs, and I've downloaded the demos of all of them, I've tried them all, they're all very similar. Okay, and I was hoping to talk more about it, but the editing and stuff is very similar with these 4 programs. Okay, so you can check those out if you have Mac or a Windows machine. Okay, all right. So okay. So let's talk about iMovie. I'm gonna go. Let's see. I want to go live here. Let's see. How do I do? Oh, I forgot how I do this. How do I share? Okay, I'm gonna turn on my share screen. And let me see my. Excuse me. Oh, I'm having some difficulties here. All right. Sorry about that. I only have a few minutes left. Let me just go through these screens. So most of these programs, Camtasia, iMovie, the format of the screens is about the same. Okay. So you'll have, excuse me. you have three main sections to work in. On the upper left-hand corner, you have a content panel. That's where you're going to keep your film footage, your photos, your audio, whatnot. In iMovie, there's some tabs here, and they organize your content. They also organize any audio files that you might have. They also, let's see. Oh, actually, you know, it's working now. Let me see if this will work. Excuse me. There we go. Okay. Let me open up. I can share now. So excuse me. Trying to share my screen here. Oh. Oh man. Okay, I guess not. So I took some screenshots here, and in this content panel, they're usually organized by content, video, photos, also by titles. And titles are different animations that you can put on your video to show text. Any sound files that you might have from your iTunes library or any library you have like that. Transitions, and also backgrounds. And these are basically just graphics or photos, okay? All right, it's not letting me screen share. Okay, so I'm just gonna stick to this. All right, one thing to watch out when you use this kind of program, and there is, I'm really bummed out this is not working. Okay, it won't let me share. Hold on a second, let me try something. Hi. Will it let me? Oh, that's a bummer. Okay, we're running low on time anyway. But I was going to live demo some stuff for you. But the preview window will just kind of show what kind of what you're trying to incorporate into your video, whether it's a transition, a text, so you can see what it's going to look like on the screen. Okay. On the bottom, we have our timeline. And this timeline is how you're going to organize your footage, okay? There's usually tracks there to put video, and you can put one or two video tracks on top of each other, even though one will show. And you can also put down tracks for audio. Now, if you've recorded on GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools, it works in the same way where there's a timeline, but now you're going to be working with one track of video, a visual, okay? Okay. I'm just going to just kind of go over some more shortcuts that I use. My editing workflow. One thing that you should learn when you use programs like this are your key commands. Okay. And, you know, we know a lot of key commands if you use Microsoft Word and PowerPoint and whatnot. And some of those are actually the same, but using these commands will really help you work efficiently when you're editing, because there's so many repeated tedious actions that you have to do when you're editing a video. Using a mouse gets really time consuming after a while. So learning how to use commands is very helpful. A lot of them, like I said, you probably know from using Microsoft Word. Some of the ones that I use often are Command X, which is to cut something, if you want to cut the video off the screen. Command C to copy a clip back on. Big one is undo, you know, Command Z. And one that I use a lot is Command B. And we're back. During the live presentation, this is the point where I got kicked off the internet and my presentation came to an end. But through the miracle of technology and ironically video editing, here's the rest of my presentation. So we were talking last about key commands and how these will speed up your workflow. One of the common key commands that I use is Command B, which splits clips at the playhead, and also delete. So there's a whole list of these key commands. The link is in the notes, and all these key commands are available on the Apple website. I put a link there for iMovie as well as for Final Cut. If you use Camtasia or Filmora or some other program, I'm sure a lot of the key commands are similar, but you would just have to go check the key commands for those programs. Obviously, in video editing, we use our mouse and trackpad. This looks very similar to how you manage files on your desktop. Right-clicking will give you options wherever you are on the window. Using your mouse cursor, you can use it to drag clips around. You can also use the mouse to recover regions that you've cut or deleted. Just as you do on your desktop, you can use the cursor to create a box that will highlight multiple regions. The next big idea that I want to talk about is workflow. You can edit your video any way that you want, but I'm going to share with you my workflow. Some of these things might be pretty obvious. Some of these things I've learned over time. I'm going to go step by step on how I edit a video project. So the first thing I do is I import media. This is any video or audio files, graphics, photos. These are going to go into our control panel under My Media. Okay. Don't forget, you can also access any audio files that are located in your iTunes or GarageBand libraries under the Audio tab. Speaking of video files, I wanted to make a quick mention of different video file types. Now, commonly, if you use an iPhone, your video files will be saved as .mov files, short for movie. But there are other file types out there, such as MP4s and MPEG files. Now, the reason why I bring these up is some of these file types, such as MP4 and MPEG, don't work as friendly with iMovie and Final Cut as .mov files. If you were to have these video files and you import them into iMovie, the picture might be upside down, the audio might be missing from these videos. That doesn't mean the file is corrupted. It just means that it needs to be changed to a more friendly format. You can use programs such as VLC, QuickTime, and Handbrake to convert these MP4 and MPEG files and other video files into more friendly file formats such as .mov. These programs, like I said, are all free and you can download those to your computer. After I import my media, I like to make some general adjustments to any video clips that I have. Some general adjustments I might make are cropping the frame and changing the general audio. If I have a video file and the volume is too low, if I adjust it now, the volume will be set, and when I cut that file up into smaller clips, all of those files will have that updated volume adjustment. However, if I wait until later to adjust the volume, after I've already cut a longer video file into smaller clips, then I'm going to have to go to each of those individual clips and raise the volume individually. Making those general adjustments now could save you a lot of time later on. All right. Now, the third thing that I do is I sort through my videos. Now that I've adjusted them, I start cutting out bad takes. I choose the takes that I want. I delete the ones that I don't want. And I also cut out any dead airspace. One thing that I use to kind of speed this section along is I look at the sound waves. Now, if you look at certain clips on the timeline, you'll get the visual on the top. You'll get the audio signal on the bottom. Sometimes it's a lot faster. You can look for specific points in your video by checking those sound waves for cues. If there's no wave signal, then there's no sound. If there is a signal, then there's either talking or some sort of sound being made. All right. Step 4 in my workflow is I go ahead and check my script or storyboard, and I start to put the clips and media in order. Things that I might have shot out of order, I put them in order. This is where the video starts to really take shape. The 5th step of my workflow, this is where I start to add cuts and transitions between my clips. This is the part of my workflow when I start to incorporate photos and graphics into my video. One editing note, you can drag and stretch photos and graphics to adjust for length. Unlike videos, which are a set length, if you have a photograph and you want it to be on the screen for 5 seconds, you can stretch it to 5 seconds. If you want it to be on the screen for 10 seconds, you can stretch it to 10 seconds. So you do have some freedom with that. After I incorporate photos and graphics, I put in transitions. And now for me, there's generally two types of transitions I have. There's simple cuts, which means one clip changes immediately to another clip. And you can see here on the right graphic, it will look something like that where two clips are right next to each other. This usually indicates that you're still in the same scene. Then we have more complex transitions where one video might dissolve into another or fade into another. These complex transitions indicate that you're changing to a different time or place. You can explore the different transitions in your program. One thing to note, when you have any type of transition, such as a dissolve, you need to allow for extra time on both clips because those transitions take time on the timeline. But generally, transitions should not distract. You should really use them to help keep good pace. I'm sure you've seen some videos where people went bonkers with transitions and dissolves, and after a while, it just becomes really distracting. For me, good transitions, whether they're dissolves or simple cuts, should really just be invisible. They shouldn't really be noticeable at all. All right, next step. This is where I can also adjust volume. I could fade in and fade out. And you can do that easily on the timeline. You can fade in and out of your video clips simply by dragging the little blue circle with a black dot. And you can fade in and fade out your sound for each clip. This becomes more noticeable if you have a lot of hiss or if you have a lot of background noise. This helps to make the change of clip less noticeable, as well as any change in volume. All right, next in my workflow are voiceovers. Now, I've created a more detailed tutorial, which you can find on my YouTube channel. But basically, a voiceover is any section where you are speaking or describing what's going on. Voiceovers are great for explanations, also for visuals, and they really help cut down time. Now, in our classrooms, usually we explain something, then show. Voiceovers allow you to explain and show at the same time. Now, there are a lot of different ways you can create voiceovers. I'll just go over these real quickly. One way is to layer a photo or graphic above a video on timeline. You'll be using the audio from that video as your voiceover. You can also extract audio from a video file and use that as a voiceover for another section. And there's benefits to doing either way. Like I said, check my tutorial video for more details. Well, the most important part of a voiceover is obviously the sound and learning how to adjust audio wave files. I explained this earlier when I make general adjustments, but for audio wave files, you can look at your clip on the timeline, and on the bottom in the blue section, you'll see a yellow line. This line indicates the level of volume. You can create 2 points on this line to adjust the volume. You can lower the volume, or you could even mute the volume. This is also a good section where you can cut out audio mistakes. If there's a section where there's a sound that you don't want, or maybe you said the wrong word, you can go ahead and lower the volume on that section. All right, next step in my workflow are titles. And titles are basically any text that are going to be on the screen. These titles can be animated or they can be still. And I've put 2 examples here. These titles can float over videos or photos, as you see on the right. Or you can have titles float over backgrounds or graphics, as you see on the left. I use titles in my lesson videos to introduce people or vocabulary. I use titles to emphasize vocabulary and definitions. And I also use titles to help give directions. I find adding text to the screen really helps me to emphasize important parts of my lesson. I would definitely use this sparingly. You don't want to turn your video lesson into a book where your student's reading every single screen, but I really like to use these titles to help students remember important words, important phrases throughout my lesson. There's one more thing that I do want to spend a little bit of time on, and that's working with multiple cameras. Now, I'm going to briefly go over my process for using multiple cameras, but I'm also creating a more detailed tutorial, which will also be on my YouTube channel. You can go ahead and look for that later. As you saw earlier in my video example, using multiple cameras is a good way to help engage your students, give them a better view of what's happening. That means that this is the same scene, but I have different angles. And you can see here in the picture, I'm giving a piano lesson, and I have one video on me talking to the camera, and I have another video showing my fingers on the keyboard. It's going to be very important that you prepare the cameras ahead of time. Another important thing is that you create a syncing point. Now, I mentioned earlier we have those old school clapper boards, and that was used to sync the cameras. Now, you can just easily clap your hands. That will leave an audio mark on both cameras, and you can use that later to sync after I've filmed my scene with my two cameras. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to layer my two video tracks on the timeline. Now, I need to put a little bit of thought into this. Because we're going to be changing from angle to angle, I want to first put the video angle that will be generally used on the bottom of the timeline. Now, in my video, in this example, this would be the camera angle that shows me talking. Then I'm going to place the second camera angle on top. And in this example, it's the camera angle of me playing the instrument. It could be playing on the keyboard, or in this case, I'm playing the ukulele. After I've layered these two video tracks, I'm going to sync the two video files together. Now, this is where our clapperboard or our sync point comes in. I'm going to look for them on the audio files, and I'm going to line them up. And you can see here the top file and the bottom file. I found the sync point, and I lined them up right on the timeline. So these two, so as I play the video, these will sound exactly the same. Now, for some of you who are more experienced iMovie users, you can use the split screen temporarily to see if the videos visually line up. Next, I'm going to be cutting out sections to emphasize which camera angle that I want. I can also use picture-in-picture or split screen feature in iMovie, and this will allow me to show two videos simultaneously. Okay, the last step of my workflow is exporting the files. Now, in iMovie, you have a lot of different options. You can actually export your video files straight to YouTube or Vimeo or to Facebook. You have to set that up in iMovie. I personally like to export my lessons as individual files. Now, one thing to remember when you do export your file is video resolution and file size. Obviously, the larger resolution that your video has, the bigger the file it's going to be. Now, typically for YouTube, I find that 1920 by 1080 is acceptable, but you might want to make the resolution smaller if your file's much longer. Another handy feature is you can also export frames of your video as photo files. Okay, now last thing that I like to do when I do save files, I like to put file information in the title, such as Melody Lesson version 1 April 2020.mov. And the reason why I do this is it just makes it easier for me to search for these files later on. Now, as far as publishing or sharing your videos, like I said, you can use websites such as Vimeo or YouTube. There are also different learning management systems such as Schoology. And recently I've discovered Edpuzzle, which allows you to embed questions and different activities into your videos or other YouTube videos you might be using. Publishing and sharing really depends on how you're going to reach your students. You might not be a big YouTube user, but your students are. And the advantage to video sharing websites like Vimeo and YouTube is they're very easily accessible by students. Uploading a video to Google Drive, for instance, might be a little bit more complicated and more difficult for your students to access. And don't forget, on sites like YouTube and Vimeo, you can change the sharing settings so that your videos are not public. and they can be shared with just specific people. All right, last but not least, this is another tutorial that I'm creating for you on my YouTube channel, and that's how to create multiple video performances. Many of you might have watched these performances at our Washington's party during the summit. Now, many people create these using more advanced programs like Final Cut. I have figured out that you can also use iMovie to create these performances. So this process is a little bit detailed, but if this is something that you're wanting to do, it's definitely something that you can accomplish with iMovie. This tutorial will also be available on my YouTube channel. All right, well, thanks so much for watching and for listening. I really appreciate all the great questions. I really hope this session was helpful to you. Here are some ways that you can contact me on my website, jrbolario.blogspot.com, and also on my YouTube channel. If you have a QR reader on your phone, you can go ahead and just scan that code, and that should take you to my Blogspot website. I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of video lessons that you come up with. So please keep in touch. Please share your videos. And you can also feel free to contact me if you have any other questions. Well, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. And God bless.